I'm sorry, Danny. It was a mistake. Those were the words Lisa sobbed out, seconds after I'd exposed her affair in front of both our families. But the real betrayal hadn't even come to light yet. And when it did, her mother thought she could flip the blame, until I revealed the one detail that shattered her entire plan. This isn't just a story about infidelity. This is about how I turned heartbreak into a brutal but brilliant revenge, and built a life so unshakable they still can't look me in the eye. Let's begin. The day had started like any other, but by 8 p.m., I was sitting in my own living room, flanked by my mother, with my wife and her parents across from me, like opposing sides of a ceasefire meeting neither wanted to be at. My name is Ethan Walker, and up until a week ago, I thought I had the kind of marriage people envied. My wife, Lisa, had been my college sweetheart. We met during a late-night economic study group in senior year, and her smile, shy but fierce, had melted every barrier I'd built. We'd been married 3 years. No kids, thankfully. Just dreams. Shared routines. Sunday brunches. Afternoon coffee rituals. Matching toothbrushes. I had loved her. Completely. Blindly. Now she sat across from me like a stranger wearing the skin of someone I used to adore. Her father, Frank Holloway, a worn-out-looking man with eyes that seemed too kind for this family drama, sat beside her. Her mother, Margaret, or don't call me Maggie, as she liked to remind everyone, was perched at the edge of the sofa like a buzzard ready to pick apart a fresh carcass. That carcass, today, was our marriage. My own mom, Susan Walker, sat beside me silently, her hand on mine. She'd promised not to speak. I'd asked her not to, because I needed this to go exactly how I planned. Cold, controlled, without emotional derailment. And she'd agreed, though I knew it was killing her. Lisa had been staying with her parents since the incident, a phrase I was now seeing in all caps inside my head like a file label burned into my memory. The incident had been her sister's wedding last Saturday. What was supposed to be a celebration turned into an unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my wife. I caught her grinding against her ex-boyfriend on the dance floor. When I confronted her, she screamed, "You don't own me," loud enough for the entire reception hall to freeze mid-toast. Then she disappeared. For an hour. I found her outside, lips locked with the same guy behind the catering truck. I'd lost it. I threw a punch. Then another. I don't even remember how many. All I remember is Lisa screaming for me to stop. Not because of me, but because I was hurting him. That was the moment something inside me broke. Lisa had tried calling me dozens of times since. I ignored every call, every text, until I invited her and her parents over for this meeting. Frank spoke first. "Ethan, thank you for seeing us. We know how hard this has been." Hard? No. This had been annihilating. Lisa's face was swollen from crying. I could still see the softness in her features that once drew me to her. But that night, at the wedding, had stripped away something vital between us. "Ethan, please. I don't want a divorce," Lisa whispered. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice level, and I didn't want to see my wife with another man's tongue down her throat at her sister's wedding reception. Margaret bristled. "There's no need for that kind of language. This isn't your home." "Margaret," I snapped. "You're welcome to leave if this is too much for you." To my surprise, she stayed silent, her lip curled, but no words followed. Lisa's voice cracked. "It was just a mistake." Mistake. I let the word hang like poison in the air. "What part, Lisa? The part where you danced with him like no one was watching? Or the part where you screamed you could do whatever you want? Or the part where I found you outside doing exactly what every man in that room assumed you'd eventually do?" "I was drunk." "Ethan, please. I didn't even mean to." "Didn't mean to what? Didn't mean to humiliate me? Or didn't mean to get caught?" Tears streamed down her face, but I'd seen enough of them, and they didn't move me anymore. Frank cleared his throat, trying to salvage things. "Ethan, I know this seems impossible right now, but you two can work through this. I believe that." I turned to him. "Frank, I might have tried, if it was only that one night. But it wasn't." Lisa froze. I smiled cold hollow. Someone sent me a video. From her sister's bachelorette party. You know, the one from 3 weeks ago. Margaret's eyes narrowed. I guess Lisa wanted to give her sister a preview of married life. Because in that video, your daughter was doing more than dancing with male strippers. There were hands, mouths, and Lisa wasn't the only Holloway sister involved. Frank's hand went limp in his lap. Margaret's jaw clenched. Lisa sobbed louder. But hey, I continued, maybe Mike should know about that. Lisa, should I send it to him, or will you? Then Margaret struck like a snake. You hypocrite. Sitting there pretending to be innocent. Frank looked like he was about to pass out. Margaret, don't. No, he deserves this, she spat, then pulled a manila envelope from her handbag and flung it across the coffee table. Pictures. Of your car. Outside motel last month. Motel registration. I hope your precious mother knows her son's not so perfect after all. I blinked. You're right. That's my car. But I wasn't driving it. I was in Chicago at a corporate training seminar, with 30 other people who can confirm that. I stood slowly. You see, Margaret, while I was gone, Lisa's car was in the shop. Guess whose car she drove while I was away? Everyone stared at Lisa. I wasn't finished. Oh, and that motel? Registered under John Smith. Funny name. Especially since Lisa works at a clinic with a doctor named Samuel Jonathan Smith. 61 years old. Married. Her boss. Margaret fell silent. Lisa collapsed into tears. I turned to my mother. Mom, can you show them the receipts? I printed out my hotel booking in Chicago, plus the group photo from the seminar. Susan silently handed the evidence over. Lisa looked like she'd stopped breathing. I think this meeting is over, I said. You can see yourselves out. Margaret stood with a bitter sneer. I expected better from you. And I expected exactly this from you. I replied coldly. Now, get out of my apartment. As the door slammed shut, Lisa turned one last time. Her voice shook. I never meant to lose you. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My heart had already shattered 7 days ago. But what I was about to do next, that would be the beginning of my revenge. The door clicked shut behind Lisa, and for a long moment, silence blanketed the room. My mother exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for the entire hour. She didn't speak at first, just came over and wrapped her arms around me. And for the first time since that wedding night disaster, I let myself lean into the hug. You okay? She whispered. I shook my head. Not even close. But I will be. She nodded, holding me tighter. You handled that with more restraint than your father ever would have. I gave a half smile. He probably would have flipped the coffee table. Twice. We both chuckled. The sound didn't feel normal yet, but it didn't feel impossible either. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced the apartment like a ghost, replaying everything. Her betrayal, Margaret's fake evidence, Lisa's pathetic sobs, and the worst part, the ache that hadn't left my chest since it all began. But I had made a decision. No more drowning in pain. I wasn't going to be just a victim. I was going to respond, and I was going to respond with precision. By Monday morning, I'd already hired an attorney, a calm, surgical type named Amanda Layton, recommended by my mother's friend. She specialized in family law and reputation protection. Her exact words, "You want scorched earth or surgical strike?" She'd asked me in her office while scrolling through my evidence folders. Both, I said, but in that order. Amanda smiled like a woman who'd seen worse. Then we'll need to be smart. You have undeniable proof of adultery. That's powerful. But let me ask you, how much do you want to destroy her life? I hesitated. I don't want to destroy her. Just make it clear she destroyed mine. That, I can work with. Within 48 hours, the paperwork was drawn up. Divorce. On grounds of adultery, with submitted digital evidence. My request. Full separation of assets, zero alimony, and a sealed clause barring her from contesting the settlement or discussing the divorce publicly. Amanda had one final touch. Want to choose where she gets served? I thought for a second, then smiled. Sunday. After church. She grinned. Cold. I like it. Meanwhile, I filed a civil suit against Dr. Samuel J. Smith and his clinic for inappropriate conduct and abuse of professional boundaries with a subordinate employee, Lisa. Amanda worked with a colleague in medical law to draft it tight. Even if we didn't win, the suit alone would crack open doors the board would want closed. And then, just as the wave of action started, I received a message from an unknown number. We saw the Bachelorette video too. Want a copy of the full version? I stared at the text, unsure if I should feel disgusted or vindicated. I replied with one word. Send. The file arrived within minutes. It wasn't just what I remembered. It was worse. Stephanie, Lisa's sister, was just as involved. And two of Lisa's co-workers were also in it. Laughing. Touching. Faces exposed. I didn't send it to Mike, yet. I emailed Stephanie privately. You have 1 week to tell your husband. Then I will. No response. But the message was read. By Friday, the energy in me had shifted. Something cold, clean, and quiet had replaced the heartache. Not numbness, but clarity. I went to the gym, ate well, worked harder. I focused on building, not breaking. But revenge, true, clean revenge, was still in motion. When Sunday came, I stood behind the tinted windows of Amanda's car, watching Lisa and her family exit the church. She looked tired, hollow, like she hadn't slept either. The process server walked up, handed her the envelope, and walked away before anyone could react. Lisa stood frozen on the church steps, fingers trembling around the envelope. Margaret turned, ready to unleash a tirade, until she saw Amanda beside me in the passenger seat, holding her phone, recording everything. A permanent record of silence. A minute later, Lisa's knees buckled. Frank caught her before she collapsed. Amanda looked at me. Well, that went smoothly. Almost too smoothly, I muttered. I expected more drama. Oh, it's coming, she said. Trust me. Wait until the clinic hears from us. I nodded. But inside, I felt something deeper shift. This wasn't just about retaliation anymore. This was about building something from the ashes they left behind. And I wasn't done yet. Monday morning came with a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find my mother, holding 2 cups of coffee and a familiar fire in her eyes. I thought you'd need the good stuff, she said, stepping in like she owned the place. I always need the good stuff, I said, taking the cup and leaning against the counter. Let me guess you heard about yesterday. She gave me a knowing smile. Honey, in this town, everyone heard. The video from the bachelorette party had made its way into more hands than I'd expected. Someone, maybe one of the guests, maybe someone anonymous, had leaked it. The local gossip chain picked it up like wildfire. It wasn't just whispers anymore. It was public. Lisa had become a symbol, not just of scandal, but of hypocrisy. And Margaret? She was livid. Apparently, she tried to play damage control at the church, claiming the footage was fake, that it was edited by jealous enemies. But the video was too clear, the faces too sharp, and the timeline too exact. I kept quiet, watching the storm unfold from a distance. Meanwhile, Amanda filed formal notice with the state's medical review board. She was ruthless in her details, dates, names, timelines. Dr. Smith was being investigated within the week, and the civil suit was moving forward. But the part one didn't see coming. Lisa showed up at my apartment. It was Wednesday night. Cold rain streaked the windows. I heard the knock, and when I opened it, there she was, drenched, shivering, and holding a worn folder. I know I shouldn't be here, she said, but I need you to know something. I didn't let her in. I stood in the doorway, blocking the warmth inside from reaching her. She looked older, broken. The arrogance and defensiveness were gone. She held out the folder. These are copies of my pay stubs from the clinic, and a few journal pages. I wanted you to see it wasn't all what it looked like. I didn't move. Lisa's voice cracked. Ethan, I was drowning. He didn't force me, but he took advantage of how weak I'd become. I was scared of failing, at work, at being your wife, at everything. And I sabotaged it all. I glanced at the folder. Still didn't take it. She stepped closer. I know you don't owe me forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I regret every moment of it. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw not just a cheater, but a woman shattered by the wreckage she caused. But that didn't mean she deserved redemption from me. I believe you, I said quietly, but the damage is done. She nodded slowly, eyes glistening. Will you at least talk to your lawyer about easing the non-disparagement clause? I'm being crushed online. I can't even walk into the grocery store without hearing whispers. I paused, then said, no. Her face fell. Why? Because I gave you 3 years of my life, and you gave those 3 years to someone else behind my back. This clause protects me from watching you rewrite history. She stood there for another minute, then nodded and turned away. And as she disappeared into the rain, I felt lighter. Later that week, the clinic issued a quiet press release. Dr. Samuel Smith has stepped down for personal reasons. Word around town said he'd lost his license. Lisa, meanwhile, quit and moved back in with her parents. But even there, things weren't stable. Frank called me, not to ask for help, but to apologize. She's broken, Ethan, he said, and I'm sorry for the part we played in that. I thanked him, but I didn't offer him anything more. Instead, I focused on building something better. I started sketching ideas for my own medical consulting firm. My contacts from the Chicago seminar were responsive, interested in collaborating. I filed my LLC paperwork, built a pitch deck, and poured myself into something that wasn't pain-driven, but purpose-driven. By the end of the month, I had 3 new contracts in a small office. My mother dropped by with cupcakes and hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "I told you," she said. "You weren't just meant to survive this. You were meant to rise from it." And I did. But I wasn't done rising yet. 3 months passed, and not once did I look back. My company, Walker Medical Strategies, grew faster than I ever expected. What began in a 1-room office became a 5-client operation in under 90 days. I worked with clinics, helped streamline patient systems, and even taught a workshop on compliance. Everyone built a new brick in the wall I was erecting between me and my past. But the past has a way of knocking. It started with a voicemail I wasn't expecting. "Hey Ethan, it's Mike." "Stephanie's Mike. Listen, I got something I think you should hear. Call me." I hadn't spoken to Mike Sanders since the wedding. That night, when everything imploded, his voice on the message sounded raw, angry, like someone who'd just found a landmine under his living room rug. I called him back. He didn't even say hello. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he snapped. "I gave Stephanie a chance to tell you," I replied. "She had a week." "She didn't. I found a damn video last night, buried in an old email. I watched it 3 times. Then I packed a bag and left." "Where are you now?" "At my brother's in Denver. We're done. I already filed." I stayed quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. "I should be thanking you." We hung up, and I sat in silence for a long while. Another marriage torn apart. Another man carrying the weight I'd barely managed to crawl out from under. But unlike me, he hadn't stayed in the dark. And maybe that was the difference between healing and hollowing out. Later that week, Amanda called. "We've reached a settlement with the clinic. They want it quiet." "How much?" I asked. "High 6 figures. I almost dropped my coffee. "And the license?" I asked. "Gone. Dr. Smith will never practice again in this state." A deep, slow breath filled my lungs. It wasn't about the money. It was the principle. The proof that the world hadn't swallowed my truth in silence. Amanda added, "One more thing. You've got a request from Lisa's lawyer." "What is it now?" I muttered. "They want to amend the divorce clause. She wants to speak at her new clinic's orientation about mental health and past mistakes. Claims it's part of her recovery journey." I didn't respond immediately. Amanda continued. "I advised her team that you're not likely to approve." But I surprised her. "Let her talk," I said. "If she needs to own it out loud, I won't be the one to stop her." Amanda paused. "You sure?" "Yeah. Let the world hear it. Let her carry that weight. Not me." Because by then, I was already carrying something else. Hope. A few months later, during a healthcare conference in Atlanta, I met Sarah Whitmore, a sharp, quick-witted attorney with a quiet fire behind her glasses. We clashed during a panel discussion about patient rights and accountability, and then we laughed about it over drinks. Our conversations never started with charm. They started with ideas, arguments, honesty. She challenged me. I challenged her. Somewhere between 2 cities and 6 legal briefs, she became the most peaceful part of my chaos. We didn't rush. We didn't play games. We just fit. 2 years after we met, we married in a quiet ceremony overlooking the coast. No drama. No long guest list. Just family, friends, and a world we'd built from scratch. When our daughter Emma was born, I held her in my arms and whispered, "You saved your dad without even knowing it." Sarah smiled and said, "No, you saved yourself." She wasn't wrong. Because true revenge isn't about punishing someone else. It's about living a life they can no longer touch. 5 years have passed. 5 long, chaotic, humbling, and beautiful years since the day my marriage imploded in that living room, surrounded by betrayal, excuses, and tear-streaked lies. And somehow, I had ended up here, in my own office, at the head of one of the fastest-growing medical consulting firms in the state. The late afternoon sun filtered through the glass panels behind my desk, painting golden light across my shelves filled with awards, framed contracts, and family photos. My secretary's voice crackled over the intercom. "Mr. Walker, your wife called. Dinner with your parents is at 6. And that reporter from Business Weekly is here for the interview." "Thanks, Janet. Send him in." A young man walked in, barely 30, with wide eyes and a notepad filled with scribbles. He looked more nervous than I felt. "Mr. Walker, thank you for your time. First off, congratulations on another record quarter. Our readers are fascinated by your rise. You built a company from ashes. How'd you do it?" I leaned back and smiled. Not smug, just satisfied. Sometimes rock bottom is the best place to build from. It teaches you exactly what not to tolerate in your life again. He nodded, scribbling quickly. "Your firm's reputation is impeccable, especially for ethics. Is that connected to your past?" "Very much so," I said. "I know what it's like to be burned by people who were supposed to protect you. That taught me how to protect others." He hesitated. "Would you be comfortable talking about the divorce? It's public record, but I don't want to overstep." I gave a small nod. "Sure, just keep it professional." He relaxed. "There were rumors, retaliation, lawsuits. Is it true your ex-wife tried to contest the settlement?" "She did. But the evidence was overwhelming. Affairs, internal misconduct, not exactly sympathetic territory." He paused again. "Do you regret how any of it ended?" For a moment, I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into the top drawer of my desk and pulled out an old, yellowing envelope. Unopened. No name written on the front. "I wrote her a letter once. Never sent it," I said, turning it over in my hands. It was filled with everything I wanted to scream at her. Everything I wanted her to feel. But eventually, I realized I didn't need her to read it. I just needed to write it. "Do you ever think about her?" I looked at the photo on my desk. Sarah holding our daughter, Emma, both laughing, faces lit up by the sun. Not in the way you'd think. I don't miss her, but I'm grateful. If she hadn't broken me, I might never have figured out what I deserved. The reporter wrote that down slowly. "And what do you deserve, Mr. Walker?" "A quiet life," I said, standing, "with people who don't make me question if I'm enough." He shook my hand, thanked me, and left. Later that evening, Sarah greeted me at the door with Emma, running toward me with messy hands and paint-streaked cheeks. "Daddy, we made you something." It was a crayon drawing of our house, a crooked little heart over the roof, and 3 stick figures holding hands. Above it, in wobbly letters, it read, "This is our happy." I knelt and kissed her forehead. "It really is." As we sat down at dinner with my parents, Mom's pot roast in the center of the table and Dad telling stories that made Emma giggle, I felt something click into place inside me. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was redemption. Not for what others did to me, but for the part of me that had once believed I'd never be whole again. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I walked out onto the porch, held that unopened letter over the fire pit, and let it burn. Because the best kind of revenge is building a life so full, so real, and so untouchable. They can't even find the door back in.